I understand that at least for some of you, you may have OCIs this week. So wanted to do a quick session on just going beyond the firm or the company's website for doing your due diligence to show that you've really taken the time to research a little bit deeper into who you want to work for or who you're interviewing with. And so we'll talk today about going beyond the website and some tips for researching potential employers. This will be less than 30 minutes, probably much less, and you'll all receive 350 points. So thank you again so much for coming. What are we going to talk about today? We have a great interview prep microsite that I'll share with you. It has some quick videos to some of the things that I'm going to show you today. So if you forget how to do it, you can always revisit that. It also gives some really great links to some Law 360 sites. So we're also going to cover Law 360 legal news, which is included in your Lexis Law School subscription. Just want to make sure you know that because it's a fantastic resource. And then finally, we'll look at the Lexis Plus research page and some resources there. So how to find more news, more legal news, also how to search through the cases specifically for those that are related to a specific attorney, a specific firm, or even a specific judge. And then finally, we'll look at some of our data and language analytics platforms so that you can really get to know the language that these parties are using. Again, just to learn a little bit more about them and do your due diligence there. So I'm going to start today on our interview prep site. It is not linked on the Lexis homepage, so I'm going to put it in the chat, but if you just Google Lexis interview prep, this site will come up. And what you'll see here, if you go down below, is it's going to say, like I mentioned, we've got a variety of different shorter videos kind of piecing out each one of these things. And so you've got researching potential employers by one of my colleagues. And then I actually did this video here on getting to know the attorneys. So using that those analytics and stuff like that to research deeper into those attorneys. And then we also have a video by one of my colleagues on judicial clerkships, so researching judges. And then if you keep scrolling down, we have some rankings. So if you're curious about that, if there are specific firms or a specific network that you want to reach out to, you can get them there. Or you also have a reminder of the link to the Law 360 page. So now I'm going to go to Law 360. And I'll put that in the chat too, but that is just law360.com. This is a subscription-based legal news service. So attorneys pay for this service, but you guys have included in it with your law school subscription. When you're on campus, it's IP authenticated, so it knows that you're on the University of Montana's Wi-Fi, so subscription. If you're at home trying to access this content, you still can. You just have to go in the upper left. And you have to, I'm already signed in. So you would have to sign in and then scroll down and sign in with your Lexis credentials. If you have any problems with that though, just let me know. But Law 360 is a really great site for just kind of getting that information to you by osmosis. So if you want to set an alert, you can get these top news sources coming, those top headlines coming to your inbox daily and kind of knowing what people are talking about. You could also go and you can explore the different sections. So you can go under see all sections. If there's a particular area of law that's of interest to you, or you're going to start interviewing in or networking in, say it's environmental law, you can also narrow in on specifically those titles. Now, this is a daily news service, so most subjects should have a brand new news every single day. And then if you wanted to, as I mentioned, that newsletter, that's going to be an option up here in the upper right. You can hit that newsletter and it comes through exactly like you're seeing it. So for me, I have an intellectual property firm that I call on. So I am subscribed to the intellectual property newsletter. And this way, just the title and the quick synopsis is enough for me to kind of keep in the know, to know what they're talking about, to know what the big things that are happening are. So I highly recommend checking out Law 360 Legal News. I'm now going to jump on over to the Lexis Plus platform. And you may have noticed we added very recently, within the last month, I think, this Legal News Hub task on the bottom of the experience doc. If you click on that, that's actually also an integration of Law 360 Legal News into the Legal News Hub. So if you wanted to come into Lexis to get your daily research points, you could check out these Legal News Hub stories in here as well. And we've got all of the same sections. So say I'll go to intellectual property this time, and I can subscribe to the newsletter from here too. So just two different points of entry. So now let's go ahead and let's assume I think this is a no-brainer, but I just wanted to show you. Maybe I am interviewing with Crowley Fleck. I could go ahead and I could do a search across the search box for Crowley Fleck. It's going to search within the Law 360 legal news for any time that Crowley Fleck is mentioned in the news. So you could grab that from the Legal News Hub or from Law 360. Again, two different points of entry. If I wanted to say go beyond Law 360, I could do another search. Don't forget that you guys have access to a bunch of different regular news. So that's going to be for the non-legal population. So local newspapers, blogs, and then you also have a variety of different other legal news sources that you could run a search in as well. So if I found out that I was interviewing with Kelsey Bunkers of Crowley Fleck and I wanted to research her a little bit more, I could go ahead and do a quick search for her name. With anytime I use a name, I always use the /to connector. So this is going to find her first name within 2 words of her last name. It's great for accounting for middle names, middle initials, maybe maiden names, previous names, anything like that. So use that because that will connect them closely together. I don't use quotation marks for names because, as I just mentioned, you just never know how they're going to appear. So kind of less is a little bit more there using that /to connector. So I can then run this search. And we're in cases now, we'll come back to that in just a second. But I also wanted to remind you to just take a peek when we open this up. You guys have access to news. So this might be a great place to look and see what are her passion projects. Does she volunteer for a nonprofit? Is she in the news regarding something else outside of her legal job? And then you can also explore on the legal news as well. And here we have 11 articles mentioning Kelsey Bunker on any of our different legal news sources. And so you can go down to the sources and expand to see all of those that are included here. Another thing that I also always do in news is change my sort order. So I'm mainly most interested in the newest news. So I'll change the sort order by date, newest to oldest. And then if it was coming up, in a couple of days or maybe a week or so, or this was kind of a long-term thing, maybe I already have this position secured and I know I'm going to start this summer in a couple months, I would always set an alert. So you use that bell icon to set an alert, and that way Lexis will automatically run that search for you every day and let you know if anything new comes through, so you don't have to go back in and do it again. Now, this is just a run of her name. So say you would also want to do a double check if you're interviewing for an attorney or a law firm to look through all of the cases where they've been of record, because it's important for you to know the types of clients they represent, and then also what side they're on particular legal issues, because they could be an environmental law firm, but maybe they're on the opposite side that you're interested in or you feel passionately about representing. So it's always a good idea to do a double check and see what are they actually doing in this area of law. And so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back to the main search page again. And to do that, I want to search all of the case law for the line of the case, the attorney line, where my attorney or my firm is mentioned. And so that's called a segment search. And you can open up the different segments of the documents under advanced search. You just click on that. It's going to take you to an advanced search page. And every document on Lexis has different segments. So depending on the type of document it is, a news article would have a headline, a date, and a byline. A case is going to have attorneys and judges and party names. And so in order to pull up the specific segments for the document type you're looking at, you just change this little drop down to say, I want to look at cases. And it's going to open up all of the different segments that you can search within a case specifically. And it's going to have an example for you over here on the right. So if you didn't know exactly where citation or where docket number was going to be searching, you can pull up that little example to get a cheat sheet there. But I want to search the attorney segment, or I could search the judge. But just for our example today, I'm going to show you the attorney. So I'm just going to keep scrolling down and see I have the judge's name, or I have an attorney name segment. So again, here, let's say I am interviewing with Crowley Fleck. I'm going to again use my /to because maybe I'm not sure if there were other partners in the works in the past. Maybe they've added some recently. I just know, to me, they always call it Crowley Fleck, but I'm not entirely sure how many other names or anything are in there. So I can create that equation. And then what we'll see at the top, I have to get my Zoom controls out of the way, is that Lexis has created that segment search for me. So it's going to be searching the attorney field For Crowley within To of Fleck, I could have also put my attorney name in here, but I want to show you how I can also narrow that down on the flip side as well. So I run this search for cases. So now I have all 1,478 cases where Crowley Fleck is listed as an attorney. So what I could do over on the left, if I wanted to, I could narrow down by jurisdiction. I could narrow down by timeline. I could also narrow down by practice area. If there's a particular practice area that I'm going to be practicing in, contracts or insurance, for example, or I could search in here for a specific attorney at that field. You open up the attorney and it gives you the most common or most often referenced in this result set, but you can also search for them. So if I want to do the same thing to pick on Kelsey again, you can just start typing in her name and go ahead and run that search. And it's going to say, is this who you were looking for? And I'm going to say, yep, confirm. And I could narrow down those 1,000 and some to the 34 that mentioned Kelsey also in addition to Crowley Fleck. Another thing I'll caution you, so of course we'd want to set the alert here. If you're going to bring up any of these larger case, a big case, say that was really interesting to you, be sure and double check the shepherd symbol. So you don't want to be bringing up something that was maybe reversed and remanded on appeal, or, had a bad taste in their mouth. So just do your due diligence and make sure you know what comes after this case as well by double checking the shepherd's treatment. Now I want to show you back on the Lexis Plus page. One of the other modules that we've added recently is this litigation analytics. And so I think of this as litigation data. So how many cases they're involved in, what types of cases they're involved in, how long they're in court, how long it takes them to settle, that sort of thing. And what you can do from here, you can search for a court, a judge, an attorney to get a profile on them. You can also do a comparison of multiple. So say, best case scenario, you've received an offer from 2 different attorneys and you really want to be involved with a litigation attorney, or on the flip side, you do not want to do a ton with an attorney that litigates a lot. You could go ahead and you can compare those 2. As I mentioned, you could pull up just a profile on one, but it's kind of fun to do a comparison of 2. So let's pick on Kelsey again. Say I got an offer to work with Kelsey Bunkers. And then I also got an offer to work with Jason Piskel. This was actually one of my colleagues in law school. And I just want to see how those 2 compare, how their litigation data compares. You can go ahead and you can put their names in there up to 4. You go ahead and do a comparison of those 2, and it kind of overlays their data. So you can get a quick peek at who litigates more often. So here we have cases per year across the timeline. We can also see quickly who they represent, plaintiff or defendant. And then you can see the types of cases they're involved with. Again, very quickly, you can see what area of law they practice in, and you can get a better idea if this is something that you want to go into or not. If you hate contracts, maybe we'd avoid the offer from Jason in this case. So that is some of the data analytics. And we also have language analytics, and that is through our context platform. So from the product switcher grid on the upper left, you select context. And from here, you can see the language that judges use when they're citing, when they're writing their opinions. You can also see the language that attorneys use when they're drafting their arguments. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a judge, since we haven't looked at judges too often in this case, but I'm going to say I am looking at a clerkship, or I'm interviewing for a clerkship with Brian Morris in the United District Court of Montana. So I'll go ahead and I'll select him. And when this comes up, I have a really great synopsis of his judicial bench experience over on the left. I also have his pre-bench experience if I wanted to see where he practiced before that. A little bit about his education, his CV, his contact information. Over on the right, then we look at some more of that kind of data analytics, so opinions per year, and then also the types of cases that he hears. But on this analytics tab, we get into that language analytics. So how he's ruled on different motions. So you could just kind of explore this a little bit, or again, if you're practicing in front of him, but today's main focus was preparing for an interview. You can also look on the citation patterns then And you can see two things. You can see the opinions that he cites to most often, and you can also see the judges he cites to most often. So cites to himself most often, which is actually not that uncommon. But from here, you can get a great kind of idea as to his jurisprudence or how he lies. So again, kind of seeing, who he looks to as authoritative figures and whether that would be a good fit for you or not. So don't overlook some of those extra analytics data that's available to you. And that is all that I had for you today. So just encourage you, go beyond the employer's website, do your due diligence, check out Law 360 Legal News, check out the cases where they've been of record, and then don't forget to double check that analytical data as well. If you guys have any questions, I will stick around. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time, and I will deposit your points and have a great rest of your day.